I never thought a window could haunt me. Yet here I am, writing this with shaking hands because I can't stop looking up at that damned window above my bed. I recently moved into this apartment, a small, old place in an older building. It was charming, or so I thought. The neighborhood was quiet, rent was low, and it had a large window right above the bed, with a perfect view of the night sky. I used to lie in bed at night, counting stars and watching the moon hang like a white lantern in the darkness. I loved it. At first. But after the first night, things changed. That night I woke up at exactly 3:33 a.m., drenched in sweat, with a feeling of being watched. I was disoriented, my room in darkness, except for the faint glow of the moon through the window above me. And then I noticed that there was something outside, just a shadow. I squinted, trying to make it out, but my mind was groggy and my eyes struggled to focus. By morning I brushed it off as a bad dream. The next few nights the same thing happened. I'd wake up at 3:33, feeling like eyes were boring into me. And each night that shadow seemed to grow darker, more solid, as if something was slowly forming outside my window. One night curiosity got the better of me. I lay awake, watching the clock until it hit 3:33. I was ready for the shadow, whatever it was, but nothing could prepare me for what I saw. As the numbers blinked to 3:33, the shadow began to take shape a figure, standing just on the other side of the glass, watching me. It was pitch black, its edges almost shifting, like it was made of smoke. But it had eyes, two glowing red eyes that felt alive. They were fixed on me, unblinking, full of a hunger I couldn't comprehend. I froze, too terrified to move, my pulse pounding in my ears. It just stood there staring. And then, it smiled. Or at least it twisted its shape into what looked like a smile, a jagged, wide grin that stretched far too wide, like it was mocking me. I shut my eyes, trembling, hoping I was hallucinating. When I opened them again, it was gone. But I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I searched the outside wall for anything an overhanging branch, some shadow cast by a nearby building, but there was nothing that could create the shape I'd seen. I even checked with my neighbors. No one had ever seen anything outside their windows. One of them, an older woman, just looked at me and said, "Maybe you should get some curtains." Curtains, I thought. As if that would stop it. That night I tried sleeping with the lights on. I thought maybe it would keep it away, or at least keep me calm, but as soon as I closed my eyes I felt it again, that presence at the window. I didn't want to look, but something forced my eyes open. There it was, closer than ever, its face pressed up against the glass, almost pushing through. Those red eyes bore into mine, and this time I could see its mouth moving, whispering. I couldn't hear it through the glass, but I could see it mouthing words. "Let me in." I turned away, covered my head, and somehow managed to fall back asleep. When I woke up, I found my window cracked open, just an inch, like someone had tried to force it from the outside. I'd locked it the night before, I was sure of it. My hands trembled as I shoved it closed, double-checking every latch. Over the next few nights, it got bolder. The window would be open a little more each morning, despite how tightly I locked it. Once I even found the latch on my side scratched and bent, like something with claws had tried to tear it open. I bought a heavy-duty lock, a thick curtain, and taped the edges of the window shut. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything other than the thing outside my window. Last night was the worst. I felt a strange calm, like maybe the creature had finally given up. I fell asleep before midnight for the first time in weeks, hoping I'd be left in peace. At 3:33 a.m., I awoke to the sound of glass cracking. My heart stopped. I lay frozen, listening, praying that it was a dream. But then came a soft, slow scratching. It was inside. I don't know how it got in, but I could hear it shuffling, moving closer to my bed. I could feel its eyes on me, its breath on my face as it leaned in, whispering those same words, only now they were clear as day, almost soothing, almost like a lullaby. "Let me in. Let me in. Let me in." I shut my eyes tight, bracing myself. Then, all at once, it was silent. I opened my eyes just a sliver. The room was empty. No sign of it, no sign of it, no trace it had ever been there. But the window was shattered, shards of glass scattered across the floor, glistening like tiny knives in the moonlight. It's 3:33 a.m. now, and I'm wide awake writing this. I don't know if it's gone or if it's just hiding, waiting for me to fall asleep again. I can feel its eyes on me, that same hungry stare, that same mocking grin. I know what it wants. It's not outside anymore, it's in here, somewhere, waiting. I don't know if I'll make it through another night, but if anyone reads this, please, for the love of God, don't ever sleep with a window above your bed. And if you hear a whisper at 3:33, don't listen. My apartment was old, with creaky floors, drafty windows, and a heating system that groaned like it was haunted. But it was cheap, and I was broke, so I ignored the little oddities, that is, until the tapping started. It began as a faint sound in the middle of the night. Just a soft tap, tap, tap somewhere inside the wall beside my bed. I brushed it off as pipes or maybe a rat scurrying around in the old building, but over the next few days it grew louder, sharper, like something was hitting the wall with intent. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the tapping started up again. Only this time it wasn't faint. It was persistent, rhythmic, and close, so close it seemed like it was right next to my ear. I sat up and placed my hand against the wall, feeling a faint vibration with every tap. It was steady like a heartbeat, but too slow, too deliberate. "Stop it," I yelled, feeling ridiculous for talking to a wall. The tapping stopped instantly. I held my breath, waiting for it to start up again. But the silence stretched on, and I thought maybe I'd scared it off. I lay back down, my heart racing. Just as I started to drift off, it returned. But this time it was louder and angrier, as if whatever was inside the wall was furious that I dared to interrupt it. The tapping turned into banging, rapid and relentless. I jumped out of bed, grabbing my phone and turning on the flashlight. I held it up to the wall, half expecting to see something punch through. Nothing, just an old wall. Over the next few nights, I heard it again and again, always at 2:17 a.m. Exactly like clockwork. Tap, tap, tap. Bang, bang. The worst part was that it started moving. First, it was on the wall beside my bed. Then I'd hear it on the wall by my bathroom, then the closet, then right above my head. It felt like something was inside my walls, moving closer each night. I tried telling myself it was just my imagination or maybe even my neighbors playing a prank. But then one night I saw something that made my blood run cold. I was lying in bed, waiting for the inevitable tapping to start. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the tapping began, this time directly above me, as if it were in the ceiling. I turned on my flashlight, scanning the room in fear. That's when I saw it. A small, thin crack in the ceiling, directly above my bed. I swear it hadn't been there before. I stared, frozen, as something dark and sticky began to ooze from the crack, dripping slowly down toward me. The smell was foul, a sickly sweet stench that made my stomach churn. Then, in the silence, I heard something that made my skin crawl. A whisper, faint, raspy, as if someone was speaking from the other side of the wall. I strained to hear, my heart pounding. "Help me." My throat went dry. I wanted to scream, but the words stuck in my throat. The whisper repeated, clearer this time, but more desperate, pleading. I took a step back, clutching my flashlight, watching the dark liquid drip, drip, drip down the wall. The voice grew louder, angrier. I felt a chill run down my spine as it began to scream. The voice shaking the walls, rattling my bed, filling the entire room with a sound so gut-wrenching that I thought my head would split open. I stumbled back, bolting out of my room and slamming the door shut behind me. I spent the night on my couch, listening to the muffled screams and bangs from my room until dawn finally broke. When the sun came up, the noises stopped. I crept back into my room, finding the wall eerily silent, the dark liquid gone, as if it had never been there. I packed a bag and left the apartment that day, crashing on a friend's couch. I returned only to grab my things. I didn't bother explaining to my landlord why I was breaking the lease. I didn't even want to know if he was aware of the tapping. But I'll never forget that last night. And sometimes when I'm alone in the dark, I swear I can still hear it, the faint tap, tap, tap. And a voice somewhere deep in the walls whispering, "Help me." When I moved into my new apartment, I was thrilled. The place was spacious, with tall ceilings and plenty of light. There was one odd thing, though, a small, narrow closet in the back corner of the bedroom. It looked like it had been wedged in last minute. The paint on the door, slightly different from the rest of the room, the frame a little crooked, but storage was storage, so I ignored it. The first night, I didn't think much about it. I barely glanced at the closet as I went to bed. But around 2 a.m., a strange scratching sound woke me up. I sat up, my room in darkness, except for a sliver of moonlight slipping through the window. The sound was coming from the closet. It was faint at first, like something small was scraping against the wood from inside. I lay there, my heart pounding, trying to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I eventually fell back asleep, but the sound echoed in my dreams. The next morning, I cautiously opened the closet, half expecting to find something inside. But there was nothing there, just an empty closet with bare wooden walls. Still that night, the scratching started up again, only louder. It was insistent, like something was desperate to get out. For the next few nights, I barely slept. Every night, the scratching grew louder and more frantic, echoing through the silent apartment. Sometimes I swore I could hear a faint, muffled voice along with it, a whisper, low and chilling, as if someone was trapped inside. One night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I stood by the closet door, trembling, my hand hovering over the doorknob. I told myself it was just a mouse or maybe even pipes creaking, but the fear gnawing at me was undeniable. I yanked the door open, shining my flashlight inside, and nothing. The closet was empty. But as I moved the flashlight around, I noticed something strange. The closet seemed deeper than it had before. The back wall looked farther away, almost like the closet was stretching inward, becoming a narrow, dark tunnel. I blinked, thinking I was imagining it, but when I reached my hand in, I felt cold air brushing against my fingertips. That was when I saw something moving in the shadows, deep in the closet. My breath caught as I watched a figure, just barely visible, slinking backward, its eyes gleaming in the darkness. They were wide, staring at me with a hunger that sent chills down my spine. I slammed the door shut, bolted out of the room, and spent the rest of the night on the couch. The scratching continued, relentless, pounding against the closet door until dawn. The next day I went back into the bedroom, bracing myself for whatever I might find. But when I opened the closet door, the space was back to normal, shallow and empty, with no hint of the tunnel or the figure I'd seen. I let out a shaky breath, convincing myself it had been a nightmare. That night I locked the closet door and put a heavy chair in front of it, just in case. But it didn't help. Around midnight I heard the lock click open on its own, the sound echoing in the silent room. I sat up in bed, watching as the closet door slowly creaked open, revealing darkness inside. I held my breath, clutching the covers, too terrified to move. And then I saw it. The figure stepped out, crouching low, its limbs long and thin, twisted in unnatural angles. Its face was a blur, but its eyes were sharp, and they were locked right onto me. It crept toward the bed, one slow, shuffling step at a time, the scratching sound following each movement. My heart pounded as it reached the edge of the bed, looming over me. I could feel its cold breath on my face, smell the rancid odor of decay that clung to it. And then in a voice that was both a whisper and a scream, it said, "I've been waiting all this time for you." I don't remember what happened next. I woke up the next morning on the floor, my body ice cold, my throat hoarse from screaming. The closet door was shut, but I could feel something waiting behind it, watching, listening. I left that apartment the same day. I didn't pack anything, I just left. And since then, I haven't looked at another closet the same way. But every so often, late at night, I hear a faint scratching coming from behind closed doors, and I wonder if it's still looking for me.